Hi everyone, welcome to the second part of week 5 of Parenting Inside Out. For this section, we're going to be focusing on family identity. Some takeaway messages to begin are, having a clear sense of your parental and family identity is key to knowing what you want to accomplish in your family. And parental and family identity can be built through the creation of rituals and traditions tied to your cultural values. Building a parental and family identity to pass on to your children is an important parent job. And letter writing is one way you can nurture parental identity even while you are apart from your children. If you'd like, create a learning goal based around those takeaway messages. One example could be, I want to have a solid understanding of what we stand for as a family and find a way to communicate that to my children. Another one could be, I would like to learn some new ideas for implementing family traditions in our home. You can take a minute to write down a learning goal today. Thinking about your family identity. To build a family identity, parents must first know who they are, or what their parental identity is. It can be really hard to create an identity for our children and our entire family if we don't first look internally and figure out who we are and what we believe. A parental identity is the vision you have for who you are as a parent and the kind of positive influence you intend to be in the life of your children. Things that could contribute to your parental identity are culture, ethnicity, traditions, rituals, family history, religious beliefs and practices, values, priorities, etc. This is really neat because you're able to take whatever you would like and create your identity. You're in charge of this and you get to decide what you want your family identity to look like and how you want it to be shaped. All people search for meaning in their life. How children see themselves contributes to their feelings of connection to their family members as well as to their sense of self-esteem. Belonging to a family and knowing what your family stands for gives children a foundation for making wise, healthy choices for themselves as they mature. One thing that's really cool is when you look at a family and you know that everyone in that family knows what they believe, what they stand for, and just who they are as a family. Some families have family mottos or different things that they kind of associate with their immediate family. A lot of times people take things from their cultural traditions. It's really evident when you meet a family who has a really strong sense of identity, and it's something that makes you want to learn more about them, and it kind of exudes a sense of confidence in knowing who they are. I'm now going to have you pause this video and watch the video titled Family Traditions in your weekly email. After you watch that, we'll come back and finish the rest of this lesson. This video gives a lot of great tips on things you can do to create family traditions within your family. Now that you've got some ideas from the video, I'm going to have you turn in your purple workbook to 5.2.1. It's titled Family Traditions. This is going to help us create an outline for what our family identity might be based out of what traditions we want to have in our family. Some ideas include a good morning routine, maybe a hug, a kiss, well wishes. It can be really small things. It doesn't always have to be big celebrations or things surrounding holidays or things like that. The simple things that you do in your daily routine can be really influential in what kind of traditions you create for your family. Maybe you have a good night routine. Maybe you leave notes in your kids' lunchboxes when they go to school. Maybe you always eat dinner together at the dining room table. Take a minute, read through the rest of the bulleted list, and then write down some family traditions that you have. Things like reading together each night before bed, maybe having a secret hand signal or a chant, or also having birthday celebrations. There's no wrong answers here. Just think about what you do with your family on a regular basis and write down some of those ideas. After you've written down what are some of the things that you already do with your family, take a minute to write down some new traditions that you'd like to implement. Maybe weekly game nights. And now that we have some ideas about family meetings, maybe you want to start incorporating that into your family. Or maybe it's something as simple as going on evening walks in the summertime when it's nice out. On handout 5.2.2 in your purple workbook, this is going to help us shape our parental identity. So we're going to answer some questions about ourselves to help us figure out what's our parental identity and how do we turn that into a family identity. The first question says, what are your cultural traditions? Some examples include holidays you celebrate, foods you eat, ways you show respect for elders, how you care for children. I know for me, some things that I would write down is I spent a good chunk of time living in the South in North Carolina. And so there's some things that I noticed were really common. There's some certain Southern influences, such as eating lots of comfort foods like shrimp and grits and mac and cheese and things like that. There might be other things like special ways of saying hello and goodbye when greeting elders. This really can be anything. It can be something really small down to the foods you like to eat, or something really big as to how you interact with people in your family, or what big holidays or small holidays you celebrate. Take a minute and write down what some of your cultural traditions are. Next question is, what are your faith traditions? This might not be applicable for everybody, but if it is, you can write down some answers. This could mean Christmas celebrations that you have. Maybe you attend church. Maybe you only go to church on certain holidays. Maybe you have Native American influences and you do things surrounding that. There's a lot of things that could be included in this. So if that applies to you, take a minute and write that down. The next question is, what are your strengths? Some examples are hardworking, being a leader, having lots of patience with children, knowing a lot about your family or cultural traditions, being good at keeping your family together, knowing how to find good deals when shopping for food or necessities. If you figure out what your strengths are, those are things that you know that you can model and pass down to your children. It's not always going to be a specific character trait, but it could be something like, I'm really good at finding deals at the grocery store. That's something that you're going to probably teach your children. Thinking about the small things that you enjoy doing or that you're really good at that you're going to hope to model for your kids. Could be reliability, artistic abilities, maybe good at setting routines and healthy habits and sticking to them. There's no wrong answers here. It's just things that you're identifying that you have a strength in. Take a second to fill that out for yourself. All right. The next thing we're going to do is something that's really fun. We're going to get a chance to write a letter to our kids. So I would encourage you to, after this lesson is over, take some time and write a real letter and send it to your son or daughter if you're able to. But for now, we're going to look at some tips in our workbook. In your yellow workbook on page 5.2.3, we see some tips for letter writing. Letter writing can actually become a tradition that you do in your family. Maybe you have pen pals, or you write letters to your family members that live far away. Or maybe you all live in the same house and you like to still write letters to each other, or you share a journal that you pass back and forth. Or maybe if you're not with your kids right now, that can be a tradition that you start now. If you can't really do anything else, you can start writing letters today. Some tips include write simply and clearly, write in a way that is appropriate for your child's age, write in a way that is appropriate given your child's relationship with you, avoid making promises that are unrealistic or too far in the future, avoid writing an angry letter to your child expressing disappointment if he does not write back. This should be a really fun thing for kids to be excited about when they receive a letter from their parents. Go ahead and finish reading the rest of these tips on how to write letters. The next thing that you're going to do is look at more ideas for letters. So for example, number 1, you could make up stories about your child and her life. Not every letter just has to be something about, telling what you did today or asking them how they're doing. You can make it fun and creative. You can create stories with them. Whatever you think would be enticing for your kids and something that they would really enjoy. Number 2, you could describe your daily routine and ask about their daily routine. This could be something, if you're stuck on what to write about, keep it simple. Write about something that they know and that they enjoy. Number 3, write about a problem and how you solved it. If you're not able to be in person with your kids and model that to them, you could write that in a letter form. That can be awesome. I would have you now take some time, read through the rest of these and think about what might be a fun way for me to write a letter to my kids. So take some time, read through this, highlight it, and then we'll move on to the next page. On worksheet 5.2.5, also in your yellow workbook, you're going to see many sample letters to children. Each letter is focused around a certain age group. So for example, you're going to write a different letter to a 2-year-old than you might write to a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old or a teenager. What you're going to write looks different, how long you're going to write is going to look different, and just the content and the types of words you use are going to be really different. So what I would encourage you to do now is flip through your yellow workbook, find the age range that's closest to how old your child or children are, and read through that specific letter and see if you can get some ideas of what you might want to include in a letter to your children. I'll just read the one to a 2-year-old, and then you can find the one that is most applicable for your children. Dear Jerome, I love you. I'm doing well and think about you every day. Last night we had chocolate pudding for dessert, and it made me think of you because I know how much you love chocolate pudding. Mom tells me that you're making lots of friends at the child care center. I'm happy to hear that. She also says that you love finger painting. I would love it if you could send me a finger painting to hang up in my bed. Love, Dad. It was short, it was simple, but it's going to bring a lot of joy to this 2-year-old. Go ahead, find the one that applies most to your children, and then take some time to write a letter to your kid. I would say you can use the lines that are on the bottom of that page to write a letter to them, or you can write it on a notebook piece of paper. You can get some fancy paper. You can be as creative as you want about this. If you have more than one child, I would encourage you to write a letter to all of your children. If you're in a position where you're not able to contact your children at this point, I would encourage you to still write a letter if you want to and if you feel like you're up for it. And you can send it when you're able to see them, or you can just keep it for yourself for right now. But it can be a great way to feel like you're connecting with your child. Lastly, get creative. Find some really fun paper, add in colorful pens and envelopes to make your letter even more exciting for your child. All these templates that I have shown on the bottom are ones that you can print off if you have a printer at home, or if you go to to an office store, you can print them off. You don't have to buy fancy stationery or fancy pens. A lot of this stuff you can just use at home or print off from your own printer. It's surprising and it's really fun how much just a colorful piece of paper with some really kind and loving words on it can mean to your child. So I would encourage you, find something that they like. If you know they like sports, maybe make it sports themed. If you know they love flowers or rainbows, or if there's a holiday coming up, kind of create your letter surrounding that just to add a little bit more fun for them. To wrap up this lesson, we're going to go ahead and circle back to our learning goals. My learning goal for today was, I want to have a solid understanding of what we stand for as a family and how to communicate that to my children. How I accomplished it? I spent time brainstorming what I believe to be the most important qualities and traditions for myself. This was a helpful starting point to identify what my co-parent and I want to model to our children. It was helpful to hear some examples of what others place value on and see how I aligned with them. And one way I'm going to use this new skill, I hope to sit down with my co-parent and discuss with him how our values and traditions align so we can be intentional about what/how we plan to model this for our kids as they grow up. Go ahead and wrap up your learning goal and work on your letter to your child.